last minute invited.
That happens. Okay, let's gather our minds here as we usually do. Bring your attention to your breath until you hear from me again. Now bring to mind excuse me, that being who for you is a manifestation of ultimate love, ultimate compassion, ultimate wisdom, and see them there with you. They are gazing at you with their unconditional love for you, smiling at you with their holy great compassion, their wisdom radiating from them, that beautiful golden glow encompassing you in its light. And then we hear them say, bring to mind someone you know who's hurting in some way. Feel how much you would like to be able to help them. Recognize that the worldly ways we try fall short. How wonderful it will be when we can also help them in some deep and ultimate way, a way through which they will go on to stop their distress forever. Deep down, we know this is possible. Deep down, we know this is what we're meant to become. Studying karma and emptiness, we glimpse how it could happen, how it's possible, even that it's inevitable. And so we grow our wish into a longing. And even into an intention. Then we turn back to our precious holy guide. We know they know what we need to know, what we need to learn yet, what we need to do yet to become one who can help this other in this deep and ultimate way. And so we ask them, please, please teach us that. And they are so happy that we've asked. Of course, they agree. Our gratitude arises You want to offer them something exquisite. And so we think of the perfect world they are teaching us how to create. We imagine we can hold it in our hands. And we offer it to them, following it with our promise to practice what they teach us, using our refuge prayer to make our promise. Here is the great earth, filled with fragrant incense and covered with blanket of flowers. The great mountain, 4 lands, wearing the jewel of the sun and the moon. In my mind, I make them the paradise of a Buddha and offer it all to you. By this deed, may every living being experience the pure world. Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kamdriyatayami. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing this class, in joining in this investigation and the rest, may we reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing in this investigation and the rest, may we reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing in this investigation and the rest, may all beings awaken for the benefit of every single other. Please, please, please. Let's share our opening verses and then we'll let our investigators take over. So, Janet, you were at the first up today. Would you read our, whatever this is called, our introduction, please?
Um,
Can you see it?
yeah. From opening here.
Yeah,
or
from
project?
opening. No, from
Here
opening.
Here I have made a song for you on the very root of the middle way, which I call wisdom. In the language of India, this text is called Prajna, Nama, Mula, Madhya, Maka, Karika. In the language of Tibet, it is also known as Uma, Sewe, Secular, Japa, Sherab. In English, we call it wisdom, a song on the root of the middle way. I bow down to Manjushri, the glorious gentle voice, in his guise as a teenage boy.
Thank you. Roxana 1.1, please.
Yes, thank you, Jalama. I bow down to that highest of teachers, to the fully enlightened one, who teaches us to reach that peace where our fantasies about how things exist are put to a final rest.
And Elsie 1.2.
I bow to the one who taught us that things depend independent. Sorry, I bow down to the one who taught us that things happen independent. Nothing ends and nothing begins. Nothing stops, but nothing ever lasts forever. Nothing comes and nothing goes. No two things are different, nor are any two the same.
And Janet, 1.3, please.
Nothing grows from itself. Nothing grows from something else. Nothing grows from both. And nothing grows without a cause. There is nothing at all that grows at all.
Yeah, but, right? Says our Kachik. So let me get chapter 10 up here in case anybody needs it. I can make us a little bigger. All right then. So Nagarjuna is reviewing for us how cause and effect doesn't work. And so by implication, what it is that's working when it looks like cause and effect works. And our Kachik, our self-existent me that believes things that myself and other and the experience between us have their identities and qualities in them. And so things that are pleasant are things that I want, and things that are unpleasant are things that I don't want. And that the actions I do to get what I want and to avoid what I don't want should work to get me what I want and to not get me what I don't want, right? However that we can word that more accurately. And then we frustrate ourselves because sometimes what we do works and sometimes what we do doesn't work. But we just keep trying different things instead of wondering what's wrong with this picture. So at some point, it does occur to us, I must be misunderstanding something here. And we start on our search for truth. And oh my gosh, by what miracle have we bumped up against Arya Nagarjuna's investigation of truth? And instead of run away screaming, we've decided to dig in. So then he addresses all of our wrong beliefs, tenacious holding that we experience as we glimpse his conclusion. Nothing has any nature, and so things can be what they appear to be because they have no nature. He addresses every one of our yeah buts. And we've done doer and the deed more than once. But here we are again at this chapter on firewood and fuel. And in order to have firewood and in order to have fuel, what's their relationship? What's the relationship between the doer and the deed? And our self-existent belief says the doer is there first, not doing. And then something happens. And then they become the doer of the deed. And then that's what makes the deed being done. And when they're done doing the deed is done and you have the result. And it's like, it's so obvious. That's just sequential. That one's there first and it makes the other one happen. And then they're both there for a while. And then, I don't know, something ends and it stops and we're doing something else by then. And it's like Nagarjuna, to say none of that has any nature, that's ridiculous because I do things. Then he shows us how we think all of that is happening can't really be happening in that way. And Arkachik thinks he's saying it's not really happening, but of course, it is really happening. He wants us to understand how it is in fact really happening. And so why it's happening the way that it is, so that we can make everything happen in ways that's wonderful and beautiful for everybody. Right, so he's not wanting us to fall into the conclusion, oh, nothing has any nature, so nothing exists at all. He's wanting us to reach that conclusion. Oh my gosh, anything is anything at any moment. So, I can make everything beautiful for everybody all the time. Let's do that. Like, please, Nagarjuna, write a book on that. And I think he would say, I have, here it is. So our task, after having dug into chapter 10, was let's go back and look at the same logic about relationships between our me and each of our 5 heaps, because he said at the end, this relationship between fuel and fire and fuel, it's the same for every relationship between a subject and an object. So let's address it. So we decided we'd do that. And so one of us decided we would investigate the me and the heap of form. Who was that? Nobody?
It was Joanna.
Oh, Joanna. Where is Miss Joanna? I knew she wouldn't be here on Friday, but I expected it today. All right, then. Heap number 2. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Thumbs neutral. Who had the heap of feeling?
Me, Elsie.
All right, Elsie, teacher Elsie, you are on. Nagarjuna Elsie. Elsie Nagarjuna, you are on.
Yay. I hope I got it right. Okay, so um I'm looking at chapter 8, and it says 8.1 says something's become an agent and does not imply that something becomes an action. That something becomes an action. So which means that if the feeling is the agent, then does it then become does it then converts into an action? For instance, if I'm feeling happy, and would that then relates that I can control this feeling and make it into a happy action, or something that I can make to become a happy thing. But then again, neither can something which is not an agent perform something which is not an action. So if this happy feeling is not the agent, then I cannot get an action that will create this happy feeling, right? So my my understanding is, if we encounter something, an occurrence in our life, uh, let's say for instance, we uh, earlier on, maybe last week, I had an unpleasant feeling when I met with a friend, and then and I keep recalling it. So every time I see this friend, this feeling is projected. So does it mean that my feelings then depend on this friend, the appearance of this friend? So if that is the case, then I every time I don't see her, I don't feel unhappy. I don't feel sad. Every time I see somebody else, then I would feel happy. So it, looking at this, then would it not would it be true then I cannot change my feeling for this friend? So I would forever meet her, and I have this anger, this sadness in me. So that then if that is the case, then there is no way we can change our lives then. Whatever that, whenever we encounter something happy, it has to be one particular person that caused that happiness and no one else. Or if we are sad, then it's that one particular incident that can cause a sadness and nothing else. But that is not true. We have feelings of sadness replacing happiness and joy and fun and things like that. So if if we are always just thinking that our feelings is dependent on an action or something, then there would be no continuation of our life, because we will be at a standstill. But if we and my thoughts are, all of it is in our awareness. We can start, uh, of course, when we meet a certain incident, the first, because to me, the incident and the feeling is simultaneous. So when we meet with this incident, a simultaneous feeling will appear. But if we are full of awareness, then we would know how to determine whether to really absorb in this feeling or to change.
Yeah.
So
Nice. Simultaneous. Yeah.
thank you. I hope I explained it well.
Any comments, other Nagarjuna investigators, about the relationship between me and feeling, the heap of feeling, positive, negative, neutral, that comes up, right? Really moment by moment. But Elsie's example of, One person always triggering the same feeling. Any questions about that? Can't be happening the way we think. Because there are even times when I interact with that one person and it's pleasant. You know, when every other time before it was unpleasant. And then ordinary mind goes, yeah, of course they changed. They changed. Right? No. Nice. Okay.
Yeah, but may I say something?
Certainly.
Our mind is so vast that memories stay there.
Yeah.
And for example, yesterday you asked me about a person and the memory triggered immediately. Thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs up, thumbs down.
Yeah.
So it's the impression also that we leave on people. That it's going to most of the time remain. It doesn't mean that we call it a crush towards them, but it's like thumbs up, thumbs down, with whom you want to be around or whatever, right?
Right.
The memory.
Right. That's imprinted even in the memory.
Right.
Right. Right. So also proof it's not from them. Nice.
Definitely it's not from them, it's from us.
Yeah.
It's the karmic seed that we made when we were relating with those persons. So in my opinion, it's like the say that goes, first impressions are the ones that count. So it's so true.
It does seem true. Okay. All right. So a heap of feeling. How about heap of discriminating between things? Who took that one?
The segue into basic discernment, discrimination.
All right. You're on. Teacher
So,
Janet.
so the statement that first impressions are everything is the problem of basic discrimination. It's your first impressions.
You're right.
And it's Duché, in Tibetan, Samjna in Sanskrit. It's one
Yeah.
of the 5 skandhas. It's the third one. I'm the third one. It's one of 5 universal mental factors of Mahayana Abhidharma. There's, I guess, the 51, and this is the 5 universal mental factors. And the definition, the mental act of the self, grasping at identifying various perceived attributes of phenomena of the object to distinguish it. And 2 examples are, I picked things that we're theoretically familiar with. So the object in the bag, the object is identified with your finger or your ear with a sound vibration. So the object in the bag is identified by the self. And the second example is the meditative absorption of the self, because we're theoretically practicing meditation. So we're absorbed in meditation upon identifying attributes of a perceived phenomenon of the object. And a perceived phenomenon could be the starting, stopping, and staying of the breath, say, or other objects of the breath. So, other objects of the breath, I guess with the medical, it would be shallow, it would be fast, it would be slow. And then for our sake, during our guided meditation, where does it stop? Where does it go in and where does it go out? And you look for those moments where it goes in and out, because the breath is a changing thing that is called a thing. And then we look for those changes in the in-between. So basic discrimination is one of I guess maybe the thing Roxana said is it's first impressions. Basic discrimination is first impressions to this debate. I do so exist. I have a body if Joanna was here. I have feelings from Elsie. And now I have first impressions.
Nice. Very nice. So you have to be there first to have a next first impression, don't you?
I mean, it's a very loaded question. Is it a first impression? We call it that.
Good. Very good. Very good.
Has this happened before? Is this
Very
really a
good.
first impression? And then there's the object, that's the impression. And then there's the subject who's saying it's the first impression, and it's an impression at all. So it boils down to the three spheres,
Yes.
the object, there's the subject, and then there's the interaction in between.
Right.
So
Okay. Go ahead.
there is a self because there's the self, which is the one sphere. There's the object, which is the impression. And then I guess in this case, this label is the first one. This is the first blush
Yeah.
of grasping at attributes that we will somehow store away and then use later, as if later really happens. But
As
this
if
is
later really happens.
this is
We'll
part
get
of
there. We'll get there later.
this is part of what
Wait,
we are seeing, we are observing as the witness, we are observing this happening, and we're not making any opinions. And then I guess we're gonna make opinions at later anyway, but
very quickly. So, so doesn't the thing that we're having a first impression about, doesn't it have to be there already for us to experience it and then have a first impression about?
so this goes back to cause and effect.
Yeah.
So the cause is our past deeds and our seeds, which somehow we have stored, just like we stored this basic discrimination, but in the forms of seeds. And then that poor object, is it poor? Maybe it's not poor, because I'm putting that on there. But the object, from a very clinical point of view, is being projected upon by these past actions that started with basic discrimination, or did it? And then we have our world.
Right. So you can't say the thing is there first and then I witness it and then I have my first impression. You can't say that. But you also can't say that it's not there at all, because then you wouldn't have a first impression. And you can't say, I'm not there at all before I have the first impression, because I have to be there to have the impression. And then, but what about the impression itself? Does it just poof out of thin air?
Well, oh, the object?
The
Or
impression.
They're dependently arising, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah. Like, why is dependently arising so hard to wrap our mind around? That it all just like bloops up, and then them, my discriminating them has happened. And then the next fraction of an instant bloops up. And then the next one, and then the next one. And if we could say that there was a moment before it blooped into what the experience is, like before the instant before the first impression gets clarified, if we could say, well, what would that, what would that be, right? That isn't right. It would be, we would get this glimpse into the potential of the object to be whatever my first impression is going to put on it, and the potential of me to be putting on that object, like, because I'm different by the time I'm blooping up as that impression of that object happening. And then the impression itself is part of the blooping up. Like it's all happening at the same time, says mutually arising, mutual dependence. And it's like, how can it all happen at the same time? But it has to be, doesn't it?
Mm.
This at the same time, and then this at the same time, and then this at the same time. But then that's happening sequentially. And we're back to where we started. Any other questions? Yeah, go ahead.
According to like reading about, I guess you would say the path or the process, if you go through, which we haven't really, except well, at least me, in sort of sort of haphazard way, if you go through an analysis, the conclusion will be that things don't exist from their own side. So that book that Adam is teaching, it starts with red and white. Does the colors exist? And the color red or white would be under the category color. So if if red exists, if something that's white and red, they're all the same because they're all colors, but then they're different. So if you go through that whole analysis, you know, about on different levels about how things exist, you come to the conclusion that they're changing, and at one point they weren't there and then they existed, and when was that point? And we think things last forever, so we make a word for it, and then they think, oh, you know, this is eternal. But really, that's just the way it is in our mind. And then we look at how things are, and then we can analyze other things. And then, of course, I thought that Arya Nagarjuna, the end of this would be the self, but actually the self is chapter 18 or 17. It's not the end. It's the end.
Okay.
Analyzing the self is not the end.
Right.
But he goes through debates. I mean, this is like a little, and maybe that's why people wrote books. They saw this and they wrote debate books about analyzing different parts of what he has structured in this teaching.
Yeah.
But so after all that's said and done, that you go through the analysis, then the conclusion is they don't exist except in dependent origination. Or this, I've read someplace that people say this isn't about dependent origination. It's about what happens if things don't exist from their own side. If they don't exist from their own side, then they're existing dependently or interdependently. But see, what I do is I read words and I repeat them and I don't really understand them deeply. So that's the problem of doing this for me.
We all do that. We all don't understand deeply enough. Nice. Well done, well done. So usually when Geshe-la is teaching the 5 heaps, right? Form is our material existence, colors, shapes, technically sound, smells, tastes, tactiles as well, but mostly colors and shapes. And then feeling is just that thumbs up, like attracted to something, thumbs down, pushed away from something neutral, either on a physical level or a mental level, our heap of feeling, our heap of first impressions, discriminating between things, telling things apart from the mishmash of unidentifiable, all potential, technically. We're drawing lines around things and coming up with their identities and believing that the identity and quality is in it when we're the one doing it, as teacher Janet just showed. And then he says, then let's go to heap 5, the heap of consciousness. And he talks about awareness. And then he says, and heap 4 is all this stuff about us and our experience that's not in, like, restricted to any of the other heaps. So let's do the same thing. Let's go now to the investigating the heap of consciousness, and then we'll go back to the heap of all the other factors. So Roxana, you did heap of consciousness, did you?
Yes, I did.
What ways?
May I share?
Firewood and fuel like that. You may. Let me stop sharing.
Okay.
Do I need to do anything for you to be able to share? I think mine's set up so you can just do it. Yeah.
There we go.
Wow.
Let me just. There we go. Okay. So let me just move this aside. So I'm supposed to be working with consciousness. And the analogy that we're going to be working is consciousness as fire. And the other skandhas or the other heaps are the ones who are going to be playing fuel. And which are form, feeling, perception, mental formations. So consciousness as fire arises independence on these other factors and interacts with them. It does not exist as an independent, unchanging identity. So this is what I think Nagarjuna is trying to say is this. Nagarjuna uses this analogy to argue that just as the fire or consciousness cannot exist independently of its fuel, of the different skandhas, and fuel that are the skandhas cannot be fire consciousness itself, so too the fire or consciousness cannot exist independently of the fuel, nor it can be identified with them. And similarly, when the skandhas dissipate, the conventional person ceases, it dies. So when we stop interacting with our world, with everything that we perceive, there's no consciousness, there's no skandhas. That means that there's nothing going on to perceive. That means the person dies, right? So let's go to the other one. Oh, okay. So this is how I figured Nagarjuna in my mind. I think Nagarjuna, when he was analyzing all this, he only had wood and fire to play with in that precise moment. And now we have the analogy of being in a movie theater, at being at the movies, and then you see the projector, which is our mind. And what is projecting upon the screen, it's our consciousness. So this light out here that it's being projected on, it's like, for me, all the, it's not the artifacts, it's the other word, I'm forgetting. The mental constructs that we are putting together as things are being projected on the screen. But those are our projections that are the ones who are making our world, that are defining what we're seeing, what we're feeling, we're discriminating upon how our seeds are being ripened at that precise moment. So our mind is the one who contains our consciousness, which is cognition and which is also lucidity. It's the one that is going to let us know what the other sensors are sending us. The sense of feeling, the sense of discrimination, the sense of seeing, all the other five senses as well, plus the skandhas. We are just receiving input, and we're discriminating at that precise moment all the information that we're being received. So trying to put together fire and fuel with consciousness, it's like this person right here sitting, he's aware, he's conscious that something's being projected on the screen. And that's the wrong reasoning that we have. That's our misunderstanding, that we think that our world is coming from outside, when exactly it's the other way around, right? We are the ones who, throughout our projections, through our consciousness, through all that input that we are receiving with our five senses, with our hip senses, with the rest of the skandhas, are the ones who are making our world, shaping our world, coloring our world, defining everything through our sense perceptions and through the karma that is being ripened. Are you following me right now? Or so?
I think so.
Okay. So our mind, it's where our consciousness is, right? It is contained in our mind. And consciousness is the awareness, the lucidity, the cognition that we have of everything that is going around, everything that is being projected. So I imagine that being consciousness, the fire, okay, and having the other skandhas, the other hips, of fuel, they depend on each other. Because I need the eye to see so that my consciousness can be aware that there's light coming through my retina, through my eyeball, and I'm perceiving an object. So that's where subject and object interact. They depend on one another in order to function. So no inherent identity. Fire consciousness, it's not the fuel. They're different. Nor is the fuel, the skandhas, the fire consciousness. They are distinct, yet they are independent. Similarly, the self is not identical to any of the skandhas, nor to the collection of skandhas. We are completely different. So there's no inherent separation. Despite not being identical, they are not entirely separate either. A fire consciousness cannot burn without fuel, right? And fuel, the skandhas, only becomes fuel in relation to the fire consciousness. So it's if I didn't have consciousness, I couldn't know what was going on.
Right.
Not at all.
The rock doesn't know it's burning.
That's right. So inherent existence. If the fire consciousness inherently existed on its own, it wouldn't need fuel, right?
Right.
If the fuel inherently existed as fire stuff, as it would already be fire consciousness. The fact that they depend on each other for their arising and continuation demonstrate their lack of inherent independent existence. When the conditions of fuel and skandhas are removed, the fire consciousness ceases. There's nothing there. If I close my eyes, there's nothing there. Similarly, when the skandhas dissipate, the conventional person ceases, where there's no more input.
So if the conventional person ceases, but does consciousness cease?
No, I mean, we're talking about the physical form of,
Right.
because without physical form, we wouldn't be able to give
Right.
life to the fire.
Right. You know, something you said in that last section triggered in me. Oh, that's the proof that there has to always be subject object.
Right.
There's something in there about the consciousness, the consciousness and things it's conscious of their interdependence. For consciousness to exist, there has to be something to be conscious of.
Because
And
we
for
need to,
something to be conscious of to exist, there has to be consciousness. So there always has to be subject object. For either one to be, there has to be both.
with animated objects.
Anything. Right. You're right. Consciousness with
Right.
living objects.
I mean, we have to make the distinction here between things that have mind,
Yeah.
animated objects, and things that do not have mind, inanimated objects.
Right.
Right? So in this case, for example, mind needs to have a body. Any type of body, a mosquito body, I mean, whatever. We're talking about right now a wind that would carry them to perform something. Okay.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that would make the difference with the analogy here. Because we're using consciousness, not with inanimated objects. In this case, we're just talking about the skandhas as the fuel. But it would be a different analogy. It would talk about fire and fuel with inanimated objects instead of with objects. Wouldn't it?
Yeah, we really couldn't talk about how is it that a rock experiences fire.
Definite. Right.
It's like, unless rock has some kind of consciousness, it
But
couldn't.
it does have some kind of energy.
It does have energy.
So maybe we can use energy.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Nice.
So I tried.
Well done.
I hope it didn't confuse you more, ladies. Thank you, Jerlama.
So consciousness depends on the things it's conscious of. To be conscious of the things it's conscious of. And there's no consciousness conscious of that until the consciousness of that is happening. Is what you're saying. Nagarjuna
Yes.
is saying.
Yes.
In the same way that there's no firewood until there's fire, and there's no fire without firewood, but they are not one and the same thing, but they rise together.
We're just talking about mental consciousness. We're not including the other two consciousnesses that are in the background also.
Right. You want to do that? Because the same thing's gonna happen, right? Same thing goes.
Definitely. They're
Just to
there.
repeat what you just said, only
They're
now we're
absolutely
talking
there.
about, right?
Right. But they're just in the backstage of the cine, of the cinema right now. So,
Right.
but they're there. We cannot leave them apart.
Right.
But they work together. They're mutually dependent on whatever is arising.
Right. Right. So when highest way says there's no foundation consciousness and no negative consciousness, they don't mean not at all. They mean not as
Not physical.
independent things, right?
Right, right.
As part of every seed ripening, of course. Phew, that helped. Janet
Yeah.
has something to share.
Yes, Janet.
Now there are two things.
Yay.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of like searched for words with Chandra Kirti. The ground is in there, and he says that foundation consciousness, the ground, um, he says it arises from ignorance without unanalyzed. So that when you analyze it, it's coming from our past experiences. And then if we have positive experiences or higher quality experiences now, we should have higher quality experiences in a future life. But as far as fire, I looked at fire a little bit too. And the example he used, and this, the commentary says, according to Gompora, this dialogue is unique to Chandra Kirti. So this isn't what Jay Tsongkhapa would say, and this is a commentary, that when there is no existence of a chariot, a whole, without the whole, the parts also do not exist, the heaps. For example, if a chariot burns up, there are no parts. When the fire of knowledge incinerates the whole, the parts are burned too. So this is not Jay Tsongkhapa. This is his interpretation, that the fire is knowledge burning the wood, which is the heaps, and then it destroys the self by doing that. That's what at least that's what I'm interpreting through his words that he's saying. So I don't know if if our heaps are really fire, our wood for the knowledge to come, to burn it
Right.
all up.
Burn it all up. Yay. Nice.
Yeah,
That's
but
161. And then you can look at other and when Geshe Michael does it. But the other translation sounded very much like this. You got this vehicle, you got the parts, and then you got the fire of knowledge. And then the parts are all burned up.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got all these things going on. And we're not, I mean, at least I'm not even aware of all of the things that are going on in my mind and how I'm making all of these things up.
Yeah.
So it's like pretty amazing when you try to deconstruct. How is it that things are being cognized? I don't know if that's the correct word.
Right. It's a good word.
Yeah.
Cognized.
So only until you sit and you kind of try to put it into words and then try to send the point across.
Right. But what kind of things trigger like a glimpse into this wisdom that we're growing, that when I'm walking around doing my ordinary human things, I'm not getting glimpses of seeds ripening, right? I know in the back of my mind, I know. But some things will trigger a whoa, like duh, Nagarjuna, thank you very much. But then it's gone really fast. So what kinds of things trigger that for you? Can you identify them?
I think Lama, for me, it would be uh listening to or witnessing incidences that has happened similarly in my life.
Yeah.
So like recently, in fact, when I was trying to do the assignment, uh, I happened to hear a friend complaining about her life. She says her life seems to be in a cycle. When she was young, she was the eldest girl in the family or the eldest child in the family. She has to give up her studies and work and look after the family and da 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 da. And later on, it re it the whole cycle begins again
Yeah.
when she got married. So it is for me. It's the complaining. And that
Yeah.
was what I used to do. I used to complain, oh, why am I like this? Why do I experience like this? Then it struck me, oh. So I turned around and told her, I said, well, if you remember what Dr. Michael said, it's recalling the things that has happened that is replanting it.
Yeah.
So I suppose, when you keep harping on the difficulties here, and therefore you experience it again. So I was telling her to find the positive things. So I was telling her that, well, treat them as your angel. They are the ones who was giving you a chance to plant all these seeds, the good assistant seeds, all these wonderful seeds. And then look at it as you're going to change your future.
Yeah.
So
Nice.
yeah, so I was talking to her and that. Just remember, be grateful, dedicate it out. That's it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm happy that I talked to her and I advised her because I feel so much more better.
Yay. Nice. Janet.
So, like, there's been discussion about not in this group, but like maybe a little bit with Roxana about the seeds that led to me um, like quitting my job or being unhappy, and then there was some discussion with the group about me doing offerings to have a perfect job, and um, and then now Elsie's saying complaining, there's all this complaining that I don't have understanding, right? Like there's misunderstanding. I work hard, but people can't see I work hard. They just complain about my communication. Um, so yes, there's this element of misunderstanding, but there's also the potential of understanding too. So I bought a long time ago the Stages of Meditation that was written or translated by the Dalai Lama because you're teaching it. And I read the very beginning and he said, well, we lost our whole country, but there's nothing to be negative about. Don't be negative about it. Clearly, there was somebody we were supposed to help, and we're going to go help them. That's why we lost our country. I was like, well, that's really extreme. And the Tibetans, they're like, you guys, we've lost our country. It took 1,000 years, and you're like saying that you're going to lose America because of Trump. And I'll assure you that he's only going to be there for like a couple years more. And it takes thousands of years to lose a country. We've done it. You're not going to lose your country. Don't worry about that. And in some ways, they think in that they're here to help us because they're here. They're here in Madison to help us. They think there's someone here to help and they lost their country to help it, which seems extreme. Well, maybe if I take that attitude with my job, I I was misunderstood or I perceived that misunderstanding because there's someone else I'm supposed to help. And then I ask myself, well, who am I supposed to help? But I don't know who I'm supposed to help or how. But this thing with school, like going to PT school, and yeah, my Ney Lama says you're too old for a career. But maybe it's not about a career. It's because I'm a student and I never got taught how to be a good student. And now I took anatomy and physiology before, I'm taking it now, I'm taking these classes. Maybe to do analytical meditation, you're gonna have to be a good student because that's not a very straightforward, like, why are you doing this? How are you doing this? What are examples? This is a review. This is a cross-referencing with examples. And then you got to make up that stuff yourself. You got to be creative and then analyze yourself. Like, how do you get to that level? Because, I'm generally not a creative person. I'm a faith-based person. I read something and I repeat it. Sadly, I could read something that is true, or I could read something on the internet. And then this is the annoyance of my Nay Lama. I'm just repeating all this stuff that's false. And he's trying to be good to me and lead me to my good things. But do I read those books he tells me to? Really, I just remember the title of the book. The title is simple and direct, but I didn't read the book. I just read the suggestion he made about my communication, which is not simple and direct. So here we go back again. If we want to get to the point where we're creative with our analytical meditation, we got to be good students. So that's what's going on with me. And maybe working the job where I'm just kind to people, it does earn me good seeds. And I am very happy in my heart to do it. But maybe I got to be a little bit less happy and a little bit pushed on my edges and doing things I'm not good at to get to the goal, which is to help someone who I don't know who it is. And evidently it has something to do with being a good student, but other than that, um, so yes, I think that yeah, we're complaining. We're like Elsie's friend. We're complaining. Why are we complaining like that? Why aren't we asking questions like the Dalai Lama? Who are we supposed to help? I don't understand that. I don't understand where this complaining is coming from.
Yeah.
Except the clue is it's coming from me. that I am complaining to my friends, and then they get upset and then they don't want to be around me anymore. So this then goes back to Shanti Deva, to just be the bump on the log and then ask the questions and see if we can get some answers at some point. And then I think time is a factor. By the time I know, it'll be too late. I got to do it faster. But then this is also wrong thinking because the future hasn't happened yet. So it, you just don't know. And I've made mistakes before, which is why I don't want to make the mistakes again. But it's only certain mistakes I want to fix and not other mistakes I want to fix. So this is very,
Oh,
very bizarre too. I want to fix those mistakes that have to do with timing, but I don't want to fix those mistakes that have to learn with learning on a deeper level. And so I watch myself as a witness do this stuff, and I'm just very like perplexed at all this selective complaining, I guess I would say, and selective action.
you are refreshing, Janet, in your honesty and your introspection.
It helps me to put on her shoes and see where I am, where I stand.
Yeah, we're
So
all
it's
doing
like,
all of that.
yeah, I know. So thank you, Janet.
Yeah.
You're inspiring, very inspiring.
So we
And I
had hands
admire
a while ago.
Joanna did.
Yeah, Joanna, you had your hands up. I'm glad you made it.
I'm so sorry, I mixed up times today.
No worries.
Betsy, it's ripening. But when you ask the question, when we get this moment of remembrance, for me it's funny because lately there's more and more incidents where I can see how my mind tries to figure what it is, what is the sound, and what do I see, and I have this effect of the scarecrow and the person, so I'm not sure which one it is. And in those moments, I really can feel how everything is working upside here. So
Okay,
everything
nice.
is moving and trying to put a label on. And these moments are really fun. And since we try even to make it on purpose in meditation, try to not understand, this is somehow coming over in daily life. Kind of, I don't want to understand it right now, but it's too fast. But it's just trying to, yeah, not understand, which is coming more of this moment. And I read a Buddhist joke today. It was one of the memes where you have this, there was this card carrying Buddhist person, and he was having up a sign saying, the end is inside, which I really liked. So the end is inside. I like that one.
End is
Yeah.
insight. Nice. That is good.
You know, last night I was just reading and some of the headline news, and it says that China, North Korea, Afghanistan, and I don't know, I don't remember what other country, in Russia, we're going to be uniting together against Israel. And the United States is going to be deciding something in a couple of hours or 2 days. And things are escalating in a very fast and ugly way. And Mario said, I'm thinking of not going to Canada, of not flying. I mean, we're here in Phoenix about to board a plane.
Right.
And he goes, I'm even thinking of canceling our trip. And it never occurred to in my mind of the possibility of canceling.
Mm.
I don't know if he's seeing something else that I'm not seeing or feeling something very different apart from me.
Mhm.
But I wonder what Nagarjuna would say in these certain circumstances where part of the world is upside down and we're
Right.
trying to deconstruct at least what goes on in ourselves and to try to deconstruct what goes in a worldly way, that you have plans and then all of a sudden you kind of been thinking of, is it wise to travel right now during these times? Is it wise to be in the States right now with everything happening? Is it wise? I don't know.
Right. It's a great question. What would Arya Nagarjuna be saying? How is Arya Nagarjuna's wisdom pertinent to daily life? It's so theoretical, semantical, so fun to rap with, but in the end, what country do you want to be in when the world's third world war blows up? Don't you want to be at home? I think I understand what Mario's feeling. It's like we could be in the midst of a big fray and not be able to get home when we're supposed to get home, and blah, 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 and he's wanting to avoid that. And no, your perspective is what's going to happen is going to happen. If we're going to get in the middle of a big fray, we'll get in the middle of a big fray, right? Wherever we are. And we'll deal with it wherever we are when we're there. I'm talking to myself too, as Samati and I are,
Of course.
trying to do what the Tibetans did, which was leave, right? And go to a place where we can help people that seem to want what we have to help, because people here don't seem to want that. But I'm getting off topic. What would Nagarjuna do? Would he just sit in meditation and go, oh, this is all coming out of my mind, so it doesn't matter? I don't think so, because Nagarjuna's thing was the Mahayana. And the Mahayana is take all that hundreds of years of renunciation and turn it on to other people, Buddhists. Right? He was somehow influenced by love and compassion. I've heard Geshe Michael, right, draw the conclusion because he grew up in southern India where Jesus went, and apparently Mary went and lived and taught and explored and helped people and awakened love in the minds of people that were Hindu and Buddhist. So love was added to Buddhism by Arya Nagarjuna, as I understand the story. So then it's like his insight is, in order to truly love, We need to understand what it is truly that's happening, right? And if our growing wisdom isn't propelled by love, then the wisdom we're growing is not in fact wisdom, would be his argument, I would posit. So would he say, I've got to go meditate? Or would he be out on the streets, at the No Kings protest? Or would he be both, or would he be neither? Right? That would be his argument. What should I do? What do you think? Like, what do you think, Nagarjuna? He's gonna physically do something. He needs to make a choice and do something. Whether what he does is in meditation or what he does is out in the field. What do you think he's gonna do? What do you think he's gonna?
I think that the ripples that of his doing are going to impact the whole world. So if we think of the ripples as if we were Nagarjuna ourselves, because we're studying here, we're trying to,
Right.
at least when I study what I'm supposed to be sharing, I like to think of what he was doing, even how he was sitting on. I imagine him. So the question for me would be, what ripples do I want to send out
Right.
that would impact the whole world?
Right.
So definitely there would be ripples of love, but that's not enough.
Yeah.
It's seeing emptiness directly. That's what he is saying. But then we say we're not good enough to do it. And then he says, well, you got to start someplace. And then we
Yeah.
say, well, it might not happen in this lifetime. And he says, well, you got lots of lifetimes anyway. It doesn't matter. And then it's like this. And then this is probably not our first lifetime trying to do this, to see emptiness
Right.
directly.
Right.
Right.
But right now we have a lot of countries engaging almost in war.
Right.
Right.
And
So
thinking war is the solution. Kill what you don't like is the solution. So like Nagarjuna, maybe he would go into meditation because maybe his ripples are most powerful when he sits himself into that direct perception. I'm not saying, okay, so if he's at Arya level, he can't just go back into the direct perception of emptiness every time he sits into meditation. But he can use what he knows to be true to sit in meditation and visualize being that force of love, wisdom, and like vibrating it into the world. And in his own mind, seeing all of this lock around it, all the leaders' hearts break away and they change their mind and they all come out and hug each other and let's solve this together. Like maybe he's repeating that, some kind of visualization over and over again. But then for those around him, is that going to be, are they going to like be satisfied? Wow, thank you, Nagarjuna. You're sitting in meditation while we need to go out and be on the street and put ourselves at risk, in order to make this impact. But then we're thinking that physical things are more powerful than mental things.
wouldn't
We've been studying that too.
it be killing our ignorance? One of the ripples?
Yeah, I hope all those wisdom meditators are killing the ignorance of everybody right now. In my puny way, I'm trying to do it too. But it's like, I've been at it for a long time. As
I mean,
Janet says,
America's grasping to the self. It's grasping to the self. So we're seeing the products of grasping to the self and how it affects other countries. And I
yeah,
do it too. I just paid like $900 to fix my car, and I live like across the street from the grocery store. But no, do I walk there to get my tube of lotion? No. I get my car and I drive there to get a tube of lotion, and I pay $800 to fix my car because America is a self-grasping place. So what do we
Yeah.
do about this? What does America do about this? Because, there are these consequences to being self-grasping. It's hurting other people that we want to have this sort of privileged life. It's hurting
Right.
other people. And I don't know what to do because I'm doing it too.
Right.
And um I mean if you take the Lojong, right? The ACI 14, and that self-grasping person's the enemy and you want to kill it, you want to destroy it. Well, aren't you being unkind to the enemy?
I know that enemy is really slippery. Oh, don't be mean to me.
So I don't even know at this point, like, okay, there's this self-grasping and I could be aesthetic and I could starve myself and I could get rid of it. But somehow you look at history and you see how there were aesthetics and it didn't solve anything. They went to
Doesn't
the
seem
woods, they didn't eat, and they had a very, that had very um modest lives. And then, it's certainly not the path I see Geshe Michael taking. His
right.
his path is a path of abundance. It is not asceticism.
Right.
Or it's not even like a path of abundance. It's just more abundant than asceticism. And I would
Right.
say at Deer Park, it's the same. There's teachings and there's a free lunch. That lunch was not free. Somebody like cooked that lunch and bought the food. But
Right.
then it's like, oh, we have plenty of food and snacks, and the community is gonna bring, cake, and so I see this this sort of like starving that grasping self is not the path that we're taking. It's some sort of middle path, but it's not that starving it. And
Exactly.
and beyond that, I don't see anything else. I don't know how we address this grasping self, this self-grasping that is the root of this problem. I don't know.
Yeah. To notice it is the first 90%,
Mm.
is to notice how that self-grasping is like propelling our every next move. And then we can decide, is this self-grasping propelling this next move? Is that acceptable? Right? Because maybe it's just getting up to go make another cup of tea. And it's like, all right, this isn't the highest wisdom thing I could do, but it's not the deciding, do I drive my car or do I walk? No. But then when we meet up with one that's like, oh, I could do this differently, intentionally, in order to change my seeds so that in the future I see blah. Then we do whatever we were about to do. We do it differently, or we don't do it at all, or right. We get off our automatic pilot. Until we want to change our self-grasping, we're not going to look for it. And until we look for it and notice it, we're not going to be able to use it to change our pattern. Right? So, Sutra says, kill that self-grasping. Diamond Way says, use it, transform it. But we have to recognize it to be able to do that.
So if we look at this situation with emptiness, what karmas do we want to plant? I mean,
Yeah, we need to look deeper and deeper and deeper, right? The karma of war is one level for everybody. How it impacts a given group of people, like Americans versus Ukrainians, very different impact of that war is another level. Then as it gets more personal, right, we get to the deeper seeds about how we see war as being used to solve problems. And that would be the seed that we would need to work on. And not meaning my reaction to war is this. It's like, what seeds in me have grown so big that I see a world where if you have more resources than the other place and you don't like the other place, you destroy it. So it's not in your world anymore. Or if you have more resources than the other place, but the other place has resources that you want, then you destroy the obstacle to get what you want, right? There are all these different ways that I'm seeing the war playing out, why it's playing out. Those would be the seeds I would look at in me, right? Where do I try to destroy the enemy to get what I want? Or where is there an enemy that I believe I need to destroy? Right? I did it recently. My little plant had white flies, and I resisted and resisted and resisted. I tried to take it out and shake them, get them right, but I found myself going after the little eggs, and it's like, stop that. Finally, I started just picking the leaves off that had the white fly or the eggs, and I would put them outside. But even that meant if they didn't mature before the leaf shriveled, I still was the agent of killing them to save my friend's plant, because I was attached to the beauty of this plant, because it belonged to my friend who moved away and I don't see her. So it represents, right? Like total wrong view. I should have just put the plant outside and let the white flies have it, but the plant would have died and I would have killed the white flies doing that. But if I left it in my house, all the house plants would have white flies. Do you see? So either way, I perpetuated war in my interaction with my white flies, which the plant doesn't have anymore, by the way. And it's doing well. You see, I got a good result out of a bad behavior. No, I didn't. Like something like that. Joanna has her hand up.
I like that Janet said about the aesthetics, and then after Lord Buddha had tried this path as well, he said that nice phrase about you have to tune your practice in the right way, so not too tight and not too loose. And I think all of us practitioners have to find a way, at least this is the one that I try at the moment. Where am I on my path? And sometimes I need more going out and talk to people, and it takes time, and there's so much anger outside, and nobody wants to hear soothing things. They want to
Inflame.
complain about the
Right.
Israeli or the other one or whatever, and they want to kind of make this even bigger, and you're not a good company to them. So
Right.
I feel myself when I'm in these discussions, I still try, and then at some point I feel how I myself am going to skip. So if there's too much of this bad energy, of the negative energy, then I really have to refrain, so to go away, and then I need to go to on my cushion, because my mind is getting so clouded and irritated that I need to get the clarity again. What am I standing for? What is the teaching saying? And I think it's nice that Janet also said, it's seeing emptiness directly, but we don't feel we can do it right now. Yeah, that's the point. But I need to go out to collect goodness and prevent myself doing stupid things, so that I'm not getting more obstacles in my way. And this is just finding the balance somehow at the moment when there's so many things going on. Yeah, and it's I have visited a friend during the weekend, and she's living alone, and she has 3 kids, and there's so much fears and anxiety about everything. So also with Mario, I can really relate to that, seeing that they are afraid to not to lose things, but being somehow not capable to hold things or to protect things or people. And it's hard to, but it's not hard to hear these things or to listen to them and try to apply our compassion to them.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But then, of course, when you start to tell them things about what could be a solution in a wiser way, then it's just like, come, go away.
Yeah, that is
So
interesting.
This is my ignorance part, the obvious ignorance part, kind of, I know it better, or to go away with your solution. I have different ones. So this is the seeds I have to go through myself too, because I see these ones. They maybe listen to it, but they ignore. So, and if we want them to open up,
Right.
in my case, I really have to try be more open to also other solutions, because I'm closing down to the solutions that the outside world is presenting at the moment. So
Right.
I'm rejecting them because I think I know it better, and then I'm kind of having this division that nobody wants to listen to the other part. So that's unfortunate too. It's not good seeds.
Yeah,
So
right,
I'm in
right.
this cycle.
So no doubt there have been times that each of us have been in a situation where there was, you know, some kind of problem that needed solving. And we had an idea of how it might be solved, but other people had different ideas of how it might be solved. And we were able to set aside our own idea long enough to listen to their other ideas and question and ask and sort out and adjust our own idea. Like we had willingness to adjust our own idea for the solution. Like, can we think back? And do we have the seeds that we can call upon by rejoicing on those times that I wanted to drive my own idea home and do it my way? But instead, it's like, okay, I see your point. Okay, let's do it this way. Got any? You know, the ones that come to my mind, I'm remembering it's like, no, I still pushed my way, right? Oh, okay, that one I'm not calling upon. Where, right? But I can remember some. So I'm rejoicing in those. And sending them out into the world. Mm.
Yeah. Like, for example, I remember Adre usually calls and she goes, Mom, how would you go about this? And she's always asking for advice and she always follows my advice.
Lovely.
And she has the confidence to just share whatever's on her mind. And Roxana too, if she's going through a hard time, she always calls and she goes, Mom, this is what's going on. And I think I'm a very independent person, that I don't reach out as I ask you, Lama, and I do listen to Mario, but when I do listen to Mario, when he has something to say, I'm always in the second stage going, but I can do this, but I secondhand whatever
Yeah.
he's saying. Not always, but it happens.
Mhm.
But most of the time, very independent. I'm just I get things done. But it would be nice to stop and listen to what other people have to say. Listen.
My first thought was also, I think Roxana did it with her daughters too, that as when they are teenagers and they get their own opinions, they have different approaches to things. And then you always have moments when you just let them do it their way. You try to give them the freedom. You disagree, sometimes stronger, sometimes not so strong, but you let them do it and just be the second, like the fallback. If there's anything not going well, you can just come and see how it's. So I think all of those moments are nice. And also now, Roxana, you remembered me that when my son was having a problem, I gave him an advice because he didn't know what to do. I gave him, and he really followed immediately. I was surprised to that. And he followed, and to rejoice in that one too. So on both sides. That is really cool. Thank you so much for the remembering.
My
That's
pleasure.
Yay.
Yeah. And I remember Gandhi once said that he had one of these very important meetings, and people were pushing him. So you have to skip your meditation. You have to skip your meditation and come to the meeting. And he said, no. Instead of an hour, I have to do 2 hours. So the importance of this inner work, it really caught my attention when you said that this action based. It's still our thinking, especially with me. I also have this problem to if it comes to prioritizing. I'm prioritizing the action
Right.
over the inner work, but the person in front of me, it's not the whole world. Like we know that there's America, there's Israel, and there's all the outer world, but the person in front of me is my world, and moment by moment and person by person. So try it the best I can, but be
Yeah.
clear about what I want to do, and be aware of what am I doing right now, what's my behavior, how am I doing with my vows and with my 10 virtues. Is this still good? And speech really is a problem. It's like this, I so easily fall into this trap to say something that could be misinterpreted, or but just or divisive speech. I recently have messages from other practitioners where I think, but this is so divisive. How am I reacting? I don't want to give feedback to that because it's not wanted. They are lecturing me right at the moment and saying what I should do or not do. And on the other hand, they are also complaining about they are doing this not, how to say in English, they're doing this, and that, and you're doing the same. So it's this kind of divisive thing of there's the right and there's the wrong, and even in our community. And then I think, oh my goodness, but we are bodhisattvas. And you once said to us that even criticizing ourselves is criticizing a bodhisattva. And if I'm doing it with myself and the others, oh my goodness. So there is so much crap already going on in the arena that we really are supposed rather to use to expand capacity. And there's also many things coming up that are in a small way where I think, how am I using this? How am I reacting here? Am I just keeping my feet still under the table, or am I going to reach out? How am I going to reach out? They just get even more angry. I don't want to be the person making them more angry. I don't know how to stop that. So, but to let them go on doesn't seem right either. So
Right.
this is kind of really like a trap, and I can only go to my cushion. I can only go to my cushion and really try to find a way by going through all the things we've learned or seeking for advice. But I don't know, the action-based thing is
Right.
definitely not a good approach at this moment.
Right.
So
Right.
I don't know if you had some insights that we could use, especially for this within the community, how to bring more together instead of, Tom had these examples as well when there was this Israel conflict, and they have it much more expanded than we have. But how to help even ourselves in this community to not provide war and more division
Yeah.
between people.
Yeah. No, I think one of the beginning practices is to be able to not answer a question or not respond, right, to a certain thing in the way that is engaging it. So for instance, somebody says, blah, 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 blah. Then you want to address each one of those blah, blahs to either explain yourself or to set them right. And then what if we were to look underneath and see if we could get a little clue by the words that they use, how they're hurting. You know, what maybe they're feeling that would have made them even be compelled to write to me in that way. And then think about, wow, you know, maybe they're feeling really insecure, or maybe they're feeling like they have too much work to do, or maybe they're feeling, right? It's not what they mentioned, but it's what I can read between the words underneath. And then if I think about that as I'm composing my response to them, you know, maybe I'm in a kind of relationship with them where I could say, gosh, it seems like you're feeling blah, blah, blah. Can I help with that? And not address the, I need you to do this, 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 and just leave that alone. Go to what's underneath. You know, if you have that kind of relationship with them. If you don't, then maybe your response is, you know, I'm sorry, but I can't help you with this right now. Instead of engaging with their mental affliction that they've put onto paper. Do you see? Like our automatic is, I need to answer this. I need to address each one. No, actually, we don't. And that's a good start. I find is read between the lines, see where they're hurting. That what even prompted them to do that. Know that if one were to read if we read our own email to somebody in their shoes, it's like, am I really getting across to them what I need them to hear out of this message? And if there's any part of no, then I start over. You know, is there any part of my message that could hurt their feelings? If the answer is yes, I start over. Before I push the send button, how is this going to impact them? Do I know for sure? No, of course not. But just the effort to be sure that I'm being as clear as I can be and as kind as I can be in my words is planting the seed for me to see a world whose communication is more concerned about the input. There's Edward. Oh my gosh, you're a young man. Last time I saw you, you were a little baby. Huh. Sweet.
Changing things.
Changing things.
You want to say good morning? Good morning. He just woke up. He's got
Hola.
say hi.
Buenos dias.
Oh, buenos dias. Do you know how to say buenos dias? You want to try it?
No.
No? Okay, don't try it.
Sweet.
I'm going to have to lead class. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
It was nice seeing you. Thank you for everything.
Thank you. Thank you for your teaching.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Love you all. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So we've been on a beautiful tangent, but shall we, with this interruption, not interruption, intermission, let's go back to our investigation, our fire and firewood investigation. We have our HEPA form expert with us now.
Yeah. I'm so sorry that I'm the last one I was supposed to be.
No, I
starting.
haven't done mine yet either, but no worries.
Okay, let me see. I will try to share my screen. It was interesting because we have done the form. At least I felt when I went over it, we have done it so many times, and somehow I feel like trapped in a cycle. We are talking about it again and again, and I still don't get it. I get glimpses, and then sometimes I think maybe he wanted to say something else, because in chapter 4 he was talking about form as well, and then I thought like maybe in chapter 10 he wanted to have us some new insight, and I didn't get the newness about the things that I was thinking about. It was a bit strange, but I will share what I came up with in this assignment. Let me put you up here. Okay. So it was really nice to go again a little deeper. And I felt again that it's very slippery in many aspects. But it was nice to think about again about is it identical, the fire and the fuel, and what depends on what, and then try to apply it to body and self, and to think about what's the relationship between them, what's really going on. And I have to admit already at the beginning that if I wouldn't have the punchline, I would be so stuck, and I'm not sure if I would have ever made it to chapter 10 to
Right.
go into the investigation, because it's really, if you don't know what he's wanting to get us to, it's just really hard to understand. So there were those questions that you were asking us, and I went into first of it. So what is it? Which one depends on what? So is my form depending on myself? Is the self depending on my form? What is really going on? And it was the first part of my investigation went back to this question: is the fire identical with the fuel? So, am I the feeling of myself that I have and the body, is it the same? Can they exist independent of each other? And like the fire and the wood, the fire is burning, but if there's no firewood, if it doesn't have a basis or a substance, there can't be a fire. It would be just fire everywhere or nowhere. And also the firewood, in our experience, it is existing. The wood is existing itself, so it doesn't have to burn. But yet, it's only firewood if you make a fire with it. So it's still the question for us also with the self and the body. And I came again to this conclusion, yeah, well, if I really feel inside, or if I try to feel what part am I identifying as my form, and if there would be one arm left, if I would lose one arm, is it still my form, and is it still my me? So how do they interact? What is going on? And you can't say that the me is existing without the body, and you can't say that the body is existing without the me, because otherwise no person would identify me, or I myself wouldn't identify me if I wouldn't have a form. And somehow I feel that my me is in this form. So yeah, they are related to each other, but they can't exist without the other. If I only have the feeling of a me and there's no form, it's like the firewood without the fire. It's or the other way around, it's the fire, but there is no basis for it. So it can't be the way that we think it is. And it's nice that Nagarjuna leads us there. So to see that neither form nor the self has this kind of self-existence that we usually think they have, and they can't exist separately, but they are not identical either. At least we know that one. So then we went further, and yeah, which one depends on which would be the real basis kind of question. And Nagarjuna addresses it with, does the fuel come first and produce the fire, or is it the other way around? Only when there's the fire, then you can say there was firewood. So which is the relation here as well for the form? And this led me again to this question of, how do I really feel that I am interacting with my body? So is it depending on me? Is myself controlling the form? Or is it the other way around, that the form, in this case my body, is first? And if there's this form, then we can have this self feeling inside. So which is the other one? And again, it's like you can just turn in this cycle, and only if you step out of this cyclic thinking and say, maybe it's not the way that we think, maybe it's completely different. So what if we would surprise ourselves by thinking it's not the way that we think? So neither there's a controller nor there's this basis which comes first. And again, it's this, there must be something that makes both of it happen at the same time. So it's somehow more than just the entities that we see. And this led again to the next question. So which comes first is kind of like a part of the question before they lead along. And Nagarjuna says in this 10.11, say a thing occurs in dependence. If that thing is absent, how does it depend? But if you say it already exists, it wouldn't need anything to depend on. So if I relate this to myself or the me that I think in my form, again, we grasp to this illusion that there is illusion in a way that it is a separate existing entity with a self-nature. There is something physical, but it's not the way that we think, but we grasp to it that the me is this thing. And if there wouldn't be a body, there wouldn't be an I who could possess or inhabit this body. So it's just another little angle different than the other one before. And again, it's just there is something happening with this feeling of myself, of the me and the body, kind of coming at the same time, at no moment being the same, but happening together. So the process comes more into the focus, let's say. And so when we think about this relationship, we usually tend to think about it in a wrong way. And what would be the correct way? And it really is the thing that no matter how you look at it, there's no self-existing entities. There's self and form happening at any moment. And both of them, there's this interaction in between. So these three things that we know as subject, object, and interaction in between, they are happening all the time. And for me, it feels relieving, even though it's still a vast stretch of the mindset to really think about this. There's moment by moment, it's happening, never the same, not the sense of the self nor the body is at any moment the same. And also everything that happens is just mutually arising at moment by moment by moment. So with all the other heaps, it's the same thing. The relationship and the process is the interesting part. At least for me, it was in this investigation. That there's really this kind of, there are so many me's from moment to moment, and they are always doing something different with this body. And this body can change, and this self can change. So if there's no self-existent, static, neither body nor self, there must be something else going on. And this is the unsatisfying answer that Nagarjuna always says or gives. There's something else going on, and he's not giving more than that, but at least we get a glimpse about our misunderstanding of all of that, what we think that is happening, and how we depend the self on the body or with all the other things that we are doing. And even if I have kind of a body, a form, and I was used to be able to do things with that body when I was 12 years old that I'm not able to do now anymore, it is still the same body and it's still the same me. So why am I not able? And thinking these kind of things, or even if there's things that I would be able to do, but I don't want anymore. I enjoyed it when I was younger, but now I'm not enjoying it. So the me part, the self part, seems to have changed, and it's not the same anymore. But still, we have this mutual arising, or this relationship to self and my form. And this was, for me at least in this investigation, is always coming back to at least thinking about, okay, there's this beautiful mudra you always do with the hands, and there's the process, and it is happening, and trying to use it also with my speech. Me and my body interacting is happening right now. Me and my body doing hand waving is happening right now. And so for me, the form and the self, it's good to have these questions that you asked, just to see how ignorant we are in our in our way of interpretation in daily life, and just to recognize that at least there is something else going on. We know it is seeds ripening at any instant, and I can analyze deeper. So why is my me different now? Why is my body aching? Or maybe it's not aching, or maybe it's too cold or too hot. And then think about, it's not the heat outside, but it's something that is making this interaction in between. And this is the creating part. And this is I am creating that, because I'm hot, but maybe my son, he's just cold right now. And it's the same temperature, it's the same flat. So there would be no reason if there would be outside parts responsible. So
Beautifully done. Beautifully done. All of us, beautifully done. So next week we'll finish off this chapter with the investigation of all the other factors heap. And I'm hoping it will segue nicely into the next chapter, chapter 11, and we'll see how we go from there. So I'm going to cut us a little bit short. Thank you very much, Joanna and everyone. Sumati has a dermatology appointment, and at this time of day, traffic is bad, so it takes us extra time. So I need to leave as soon as we're done here. So remember that person we wanted to be able to help. We have rippled out the end of all their suffering someday. And that's a great, 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 great goodness. So please be happy with yourself. And think of this goodness like a beautiful glowing gemstone we can hold in our hands, recalling our own precious holy guide who's there so happy with us. Feel your gratitude and reliance upon them, and ask them, please, please, stay with me, help me, continue to guide me. And then offer them this gemstone of goodness. See them, bless it, accept it, bless it, and carry it with them right back into your heart. See them there, feel them there. It feels so good. We want to keep it forever. And so we know to share them by the power of the goodness that we've just done. May all beings complete the collection of merit and wisdom, and thus gain the two ultimate bodies that merit and wisdom may. So use those 3 long exhales to share this goodness with that one person, to share it with everyone you love, to share it with every existing being everywhere. See them all filled with wisdom, filled with loving kindness. And may it be so. All right. Thank you, everyone. I'm